Right, so today is our DDA meeting. It is Wednesday, July 16th, 2025, and it is 6 p.m. Let's do our Pledge of Allegiance after we
That's what I was
turn
just
our
turning my
first.
phone off.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So roll call, Ms. Harper, do you mind doing that, Mrs. Harper?
Nope. Supervisor Chuck Vale, David Giddens,
Here.
Tara Hansen. Here. Sam Morocco,
I'm here.
John Doolin,
Here.
Gus Zatuna,
Here.
and myself, Kim Harper.
All right, awesome. First item of business is that we need to approve the minutes from our last meeting, June 18th, 2025. Anybody like to make a motion if there's no changes that need to be made? We got some tickets there.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from last meeting.
Support.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Awesome. There's no presentations today. There's nobody logged in for public comment. Review of agenda. Tonight, we're just, all that's on the agenda right now is to talk about subcommittee updates. Is there anything that needs to be added to the agenda?
So what I would like to add onto the agenda to discuss the 5-year strategy that we kicked around for a little bit. And I don't know if we want to add it to the agenda to have a discussion about it, or if we just want to move on it.
I'll make a motion, or support his motion to add it to regular business.
Okay.
That way I think we can act if we see fit.
Would anybody like to second that?
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So we will add that. Anything else? No? All right. We move past financial matters. I'm sure some of that's going to come up during the subcommittee updates. And then we'll get into I, reports, resolutions, and recommendations for subcommittee updates. So I know that the projects and planning subcommittee met today. Do you guys want to kind of talk about that? Is this going to be incorporated, the 5-year plan?
I think they're
Different.
Yeah, I think they're separate.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah, so I'll just kick it off, that's
Yeah,
right.
sure.
So, yeah, the three of us met today, and I think what we committed to coming here with was kind of a wish list of things we'd like to potentially tackle, which is why I think talking about the 5-year strategy is important. I want to kick it off with Sam had an amazing idea that we consider putting a scaled-down version of the sign that we're developing for the park
Okay.
at the intersection of Andersonville and White Lake. And I just think that's,
I defer credit on that
That's a
idea,
fantastic
John, to
idea.
you.
so,
Okay.
So,
that's one of the projects that we'd like to, and that one would obviously come after we do the final approval on what's gonna go at the Pocket Park. So sticking near Andersonville and Dixie, we'd like to finish the sidewalk on both sides of the street to make that walkable. There's 2 sections that we identified on I'm geographically challenged again, on the Parks at Stonewood side. There's 2
north
sections.
side.
North?
Yeah, call it the north side.
There's 2 sections of sidewalk missing there, one going from Parks of Stonewood to Dixie, and then the other one going from Parks of Stonewood down to the railroad tracks. And then there's potentially a piece of sidewalk missing. I think we'd have to look and see. Right now, it runs down behind a house, and we would just want to make sure that that's actual sidewalk there and not just dirt road where the dirt road's covered up.
Okay.
So,
Is there a sidewalk on the other side, on the storage unit side?
yes,
Okay.
Partially.
yes. So it's
Partially
we're,
on both sides.
yeah, we're talking at most a couple hundred feet of sidewalk in each area that are missing. And we can get some exact numbers once we get closer to putting this plan together.
Mhm.
And then along Dixie, really along the whole corridor, we want to do look into putting some crosswalks there, so that we can make it a little safer for the pedestrian traffic. And the reason for this is we're spending a lot of money to put some, benches in and make this a walkable area, and we would want them to be able to cross that road safer. It just, obviously pending a lot of discussion, we would like to consider putting in some type of art or sculptures of some kind to just make the place just a little more visibly appealing. And I know that there's talk about, moving the sidewalks back and putting some green space in there. So with that, I think would come some street trees, just really along the whole corridor. I think that's the green belt, I think that's what you called it, Sam?
Mm-hmm.
And then, we know that there's gonna be some work done at the intersection of Dixie and White Lake, I believe on the Neiman side of the road. We'd like to look at adding a turn lane, right there near the Walgreens, so that,
Other side of the road.
yeah. Between the Walgreens and the cemetery.
So adding a second turn lane?
No, well,
There
it'd be
is-
a right turn lane.
Yeah, it'd be right turn lane. There's a left, there's a straight, but we put a right turn lane there.
Okay.
Coming
Okay.
out of the village, turning right north
So you'd be
onto
taking the
Dixie.
property from the Walgreens then,
Yes.
essentially?
Yep, yeah, exactly.
Well,
Okay.
and in full disclosure on that, I think it's actually township property, because there's utilities there. So we think it's already like an easement.
Okay.
We're not sure, but that, Brian had mentioned that a few meetings back.
You're talking about like the sidewalk area in front of Walgreens?
Yeah.
Past the Deer Lake, because, that's something I had asked the Carlisle group that they should bring up, because they met with the MDOT. And, they're planning on redoing that whole intersection because it's dangerous essentially, but they were going to do it, I think, in 2026. Now they're pushed it to 2027, if I heard correctly.
Yeah.
Either way, as you're coming up to Dixie, in front of that Walgreens, it's very narrow. So we almost had to add a lane much further back than just in front of Walgreens for, if we're gonna do that construction. I think we need to almost bring it back to, what is that Deer Lake?
Yeah, it won't be us that
Drive.
makes those decisions, but,
Well, we can definitely bring it up,
Yeah.
and, hopefully be a part of that discussion, because we don't wanna, have them complete it and then we add it later. If they're gonna already be doing construction, and we're just talking about road closures before this meeting, it'd be nice to have it closed while they're adding another lane.
there'd be a financial benefit to us to do it at the same time as they're doing the west side of the road, which is why this has come up, So that was just one, we basically, we met, this is our infrastructure list that we've come up with so far that,
Yeah,
You
and
know?
there's one more item, sorry, Sam, to cut you off,
no,
but
it was your baby.
right there at where the cemetery is by with Walgreens, there is currently, I think it's a bike rack. I'll be honest, I can't tell whether it's art or a bike rack, I'm not sure.
A little of both.
On the corner?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of a little of both.
It's sculptures of bikes, but you can
Yeah,
lock your bikes
yeah,
to
yeah.
it.
That's- So what we would like to do is something similar to that, at strategic corners, and a concrete slab and a bench, potentially at some point, maybe some type of weather shelter. And the reason for this is, I think there's two solid reasons for this. The first is, those are heavy intersections, and so if we're going to encourage people to get out and walk, we have a pretty significant elderly community, and I think it would be a great place for them to rest while they're waiting for the crosswalk to turn in their favor. And the other thing is, in the future, should we ever get a bus route through the township, we could potentially already have the infrastructure in place.
Okay.
So I think that's it.
Very good. When you were talking about the crosswalks, was there an idea of where you guys discussed putting those? Like at what point up and down Dixie?
We did have some discussions about it, but we recognize that would have to be a bigger study to make sure that we're not impacting the traffic flow. We have our pet peeves of where we'd like to see them.
Sure.
We'd really like to improve the traffic situation at M15 in Dixie. and allow that for safe travel. Personally, mine is, of course, White Lake and Dixie, because I live right there. My kids use that intersection, and that neighborhood produces hundreds of kids, so it'd be a great place for safety.
Yeah, for sure. So, I'm sorry, were you talking about the 5-year strategy, or were you
No.
talking about?
Not
okay,
yet.
so you're talking about what we should be planning to do in the coming year with this annual budget? Because our budget committee is gonna use what we're discussing now to create a budget, based on those items. But obviously, we'll have to include things that we've already discussed, like the park, the $60,000 that we owe to the township to pay for the purchase of that land. Okay.
I believe the way you said it was like we wanted them all done in 1 year.
No, sorry.
Just, yeah, it's an ongoing before we finish the downtown district.
Right.
Okay.
So it'd probably be best for our budget committee to see, all right, this is how much money we have, take out things that we already know we're gonna have to spend for, and then see what of these items we can incorporate.
I don't think that we're planning on incorporating any of those items. We're
Okay.
identifying them as infrastructure.
Future plans.
Needs.
No, well, that's where the 5-year strategy comes out. So identifying what capital improvements we want to make on the corridor. Any budgeting that we do for the next year or two is going to be spent on finishing the park and the engineering and the research and the time to come up with costs of this infrastructure list. We won't be, our budget's not going to be to probably do any of those.
Okay.
It's gonna be to fund what's needed to get the prices, the designs, and everything to do it in a future budget. So, but the capital improvement list, this is what we came up with as ideas that we had of looking into the 15-year plan. Now, what I can say, you want me to get into the DPW thing, the strategy?
Yeah.
So, I met with Dave McKee, the DPW director. He's very excited. So what we got is like a 3-layer process. We've got the DDA, who's got money to invest in the corridor. Then we've got the DPW, who's allocated money to invest in the corridor, because we've got infrastructure that they already have slated in the master plan, they've got funding for, and they've got scheduled to do. So what helps, and then we've got the millage for the safety path in the township. So we've been talking with with them. I've been talking with Dave McKee, and he's excited about this. So there would be, in order to move the sidewalks off the road to put a green belt in, we probably would have to acquire some easements. But the
A lot of easements.
DPW would be the one acquiring the easements for the DDA, because they need it for the sewer and water. There's hardly any sewer and water on the east side of Dixie Highway, which is where most of our issues are. So we already have a plan, a future master plan of the sewer and water to put in the sewer and water on the east side. So when they would, so kind of this is a scenario. It's not locked in stone, but we would identify areas that we want to work on first. We would try to align that with the DPW. He would work with us. They would acquire the what did I call it?
Permits?
Easements.
The
Easements.
easements for us. They would go in and put the infrastructure in. Like right now, there's no water that goes in front of the Sportsman's in the park, but that's on Dave's radar to do it. And he said it's no big deal. They got the money to add that section of water, so we could juice the park. It's on the plan to get done anyway, and it's a small amount of work. They would do the infrastructure off the curb, out of the, to assess the easements. Then once the infrastructure's in, now is when we would work with the Safety Path Committee of overlaying our sidewalks off the road into that space that the utilities just went in, which is what Dave suggested, that allows us then to move our sidewalks over. They're not concerned about putting sidewalks over sewer and water pipes, because they're not, access to those is very rare, you know what I mean? We don't need to worry about covering them up with concrete. So the moral of the story is that it could be already slated that the Safety Path Committee, with the millage money and their master plan, already has a year and date specific to make the connectivity of White Lake Road sidewalks. That's what we need to look into. and they would have funding for that, plus the DPW then would be involved with us to help get grants and funding for the project. So with all three of us working in conjunction to get utilities off the road, get the sidewalk off the road, and put the green belt in, is really a good opportunity, because we got three different entities, all with different funding, all working towards the same goal. So that's a huge deal than like us tackling it ourselves, which would exhaust a lot more of our resources. So that was one of the discussions that we had. So that was all kind of playing into. So as far as the 5-year plan is more about getting the analysis and the cost engineering done going up the corridor. I suggested that maybe we have the engineers break it up from the Waterford line to the top of Waterford Hill, then from Waterford Hill to maybe, then maybe to 15, then 15 to White Lake, and then that way we can align those chunks of improvements with the schedule of the infrastructure work that the DPW is always working on. So maybe we fix up our part down by the park, and then Dave's like, hey, I'm getting ready to put sewer and water in, because there is none in front of the movie theater, which is one of the deterrents from that developing. So we know that we need to put it there. But when we go to do that, that will allow us to fix the sidewalk problem and do stuff. So we might have to jump around a little bit. But, so when I made the comment about the budgets, really the budget, so what I'm told right now is we got about 70K left for this year. It's in the budget at this time, and we'll have hundreds of thousands next year to finish the park. So the money now that needs to be spent is the design of the park, the engineering of the park, getting the RFP of the park, which we've approved. I'll update you on the meeting about that in a minute, and then John can, and then from there we would get somebody to get the 5-year plan, the plan. What are we gonna do? Who's gonna get the engineering? Who's gonna meet with MDOT? Who's gonna put the whole package together so we can get it out for bid? And then we start getting to where future budgets are gonna relate to future projects, because we would actually have costs and numbers and sections to work, we would actually have information. So that's why it seemed like from talking to people that our budgeting currently is really more about engineering, design, RFPs, and costs, so that we can adequately propose and estimate actual project costs going into the future. So without having that data and someone coordinating all that with all the entities and getting all that pricing, we would just be wasting time guessing at what, this is $1 million, that's $500,000, it's, $1 million a mile, it's whatever.
Right.
So,
Well, they just did the Sashabo corridor, so they've got,
well, there's
Yeah,
unique
good
challenges
estimates, yeah.
over there because of topography, so, and retaining walls, and this was pretty much just a
Straight,
straight
yeah.
shot. But to get real numbers, John, you wanna get into the what we're trying to figure out?
So that's kind of what led into all this, David, what led into me wanting to add this back to the agenda is, I think that we do need to engage the Carlisle Group with some of the other consultants that we already have working for the township, and get a 5-year capital improvement strategic plan, so that we can start to put some of these pieces together.
That would be the normal procedure of a long-term capital improvement project, like the CIA, or we have to hire a company to run the DDA if we're not going to hire full-time staff to run the DDA, which is not in favor of the board. Like other communities, they just have full-time people that they just work full-time implementing all of this, which would be inappropriate for us because we don't have anybody that's qualified to do that, so.
and we all have full-time jobs.
Yeah, so, you'd be kidding yourself to think that somebody in the township just on the side is going to run this, which is why you go to a consulting firm. So we're already under contract with Carlisle, we're already doing the park with them, he's been here 40 years. Jason Longhurst is our engineer. It just, the quick and easy, most efficient way to do it is just have Carl Warren continue to provide the services needed to advance the DDA. I mean, someone's got to do it. So unless someone has another suggestion of who we would reach out to do it, I don't, that is the way you would move forward, because we've been kind of
Stagnant.
We've been stagnant because there's nobody driving the DDA, and it requires someone to do it, and the funding that we have in place now will cover that, which will then just keep advancing us to the next step, under our direction, of course, you know, so.
So, Sam, you posed a question there, but I'd like to pause for a second to see if anybody has the answer to it. Are there any other suggestions? I'm new to the township, so I don't know the Carlisle group, I just know them from the meetings. Is there anybody else that you think can do this?
I don't think we can take it out to anyone else because the township has a contract with Carlisle. Is that correct?
We do for consulting, I don't know if it's
Right. I don't know
specific
if
to
the
that,
DDA
but
could take it out on their own, or if we have agency the township has.
we do have, we did approve the township board did approve the procurement policy changes for the DDA, so that we would have the latitude to make decisions on hiring people with, as long as it fell under the parameters of what was already approved, you know, so we don't need to go to the board to hire Carlisle to be the guy driving the DDA. We
Right,
changed
but
that.
do we have the right to pick someone other than the Carlisle group is what I'm asking?
Well, we-
And plus, the Carlisle group already knows everything else in the township. It seems like a waste of time and
Yeah,
money
it
to
would-
figure out,
Yeah.
hey, let's teach them all this stuff when Carlisle's been doing a good job and has been in for so many years.
It's been here 40
In my
years.
opinion, it wouldn't be worth the time to find someone new or to take it out anywhere else.
I agree.
If we were 10 years in and we had all been on the board that long, maybe, and we had all the history, maybe, but it
They
makes
just
no
know-
sense
they've
for
done
right
it-
now
sorry.
to.
They did the CIA, I mean, they've
Yeah,
done
it's-
everything else in our community.
For
They
40
have
years.
ideas.
I think we would have the right, though, to answer your question, to go out as long as we went through purchasing protocol to go out for bids.
We'd have to
However,
give them the option, though, we'd have to also let Carlisle bid on it.
Well, we'd
Sure,
have
if
to
we
get,
went out
we'd have
for
to
a
pay
bid.
someone to
Yeah.
do an RFP to put it out.
I
for
personally, I don't
bid.
think it's worth the time or the
that's
money.
the
and-
bottom line, I
yeah.
think, that we've
I
all
agree.
come to the conclusion, since they have been involved and intricate into the community, they know the ups and downs of things,
I agree.
and so
Yeah.
it's,
And we've stayed with them for 40 years, so obviously as a township, we're happy.
They're already working on the project,
Mhm.
so. But that was kind of the direction that we, input from people is that if you wanna get this thing going, get them on board, and they will run this for us, under our, input
Right.
to keep things going. And then we have someone to hold accountable, like, why aren't we moving, you know, where are we at, you know, instead of just, who's doing it, you know?
When is the land cost due back to the township?
We owe them another 120,
Yeah,
but
when?
it's amortized over 3 years, so
Over 3
every year
years.
we give them 60K. So we did the first,
Yep.
maybe it's the the first was this year, I think, so. So the other part of it, well, we're on that, let's stay on that topic, so.
Yeah.
Um,
So I guess the question I would ask is, would anybody, I'd like to make a motion that we hire the Carlisle Group to develop the capital improvement plan with a 5-year capital improvement strategic plan using Nowak and Frous and working with Dave McKee.
and I would second that, but I would also enhance that by last month, we had discussed doing this very thing, and we had gone over the advantages in working with the Carlisle Group, and we decided last month that we would move forward with that. And with this motion, I think that we could go start the contract with them at this point in
I
time.
thought we already approved it last month. I don't see a reason to reapprove it tonight.
Yeah, it said we could move forward with it. I don't know that
Oh,
it was a
you need us to
motion
vote as a
necessarily
motion.
that had to go,
Oh.
but now, since it is a motion, I think I'm seconding that motion so that we could move forward and use them
Okay.
and put it in action.
I'm with it,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
that's what I thought we voted on it,
Secretary.
but obviously.
You're the treasurer.
Oh, you're-
Kimberly Harper is the secretary. So she has to make a motion?
No, just make roll call.
Okay. Can you, Ms. Harper, can you do a roll call for this vote?
Sure.
Motion by Doolin, seconded by her.
Harper.
Yeah.
To approve.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, you just
that's-
gotta do roll
okay,
call.
So just to approve,
But I mean, she might need us
So-
to write it down.
check
You wanna write
file
it
is,
down?
well,
Do you
it
want
will.
us to
Do you wanna
say it again?
Yeah, say it again.
Say the
Oh,
actual,
okay,
let's
all
make
right.
the motion so it's
So-
clear for everybody.
I was like,
Motion.
I'm not
I'm
sure what
sorry.
we're saying.
All right, so
It's like,
I'd like to make a motion to hire Carlisle to develop a 5-year capital improvement strategic plan using Nowak and Fraus and working with Dave McKee.
And I would second that motion,
Okay,
and then to take a vote on it.
yep.
David Giddens,
I approve of that.
Tara Hanson,
Approve.
Sam Morocco.
Yes,
John Doolin,
Yes.
and Gus.
Yes.
you,
And myself, Kim Harper. Well, since I
She
seconded, I
seconded,
vote.
she already
you
voted.
still have
I
to
will
vote.
vote yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, unanimous.
Motion passes, cool.
Awesome.
Um,
And to, and to just kind of double on that is, these guys are consulting professionals. This is what they do for a living. As a chairman, I've tried to do a lot of things, like even reaching out to MDOT about this flag thing, which I thought was a no-brainer. Let's buy some flags, let's put it up. And there's a lot of obstacles involved. One of which I brought up, I think, last meeting, that, they want to only allow us to have these signs up for 3 weeks maximum. But a consulting group may know loopholes or ins and outs, or, hey, this township or this highway is doing it, why are they allowed to do it and we're not? And maybe they know the proper verbiage of how to get things done the way that we want to. Because right now, even that one thing of getting flags is at a standstill, because MDOT's given us pushback of, visibility.
Have you
Which
made-
makes me think they might give us pushback on visibility for trees if we want to add treescape to the highway, because they're saying that, the rules for the highway are different from, say, roads. And I looked it up, I'm like, why is Baldwin Road allowed to have
It's a
these
road,
things?
not a highway,
Exactly.
right?
I did have a conversation with Dave McKee about that, and he brought it up, not me, because I was there about different issues, and he seemed to think that it was no big deal. Just, he'll take care of it. We'll get the brackets, he'll put them up.
Yes, but if
I
we're
understand,
gonna
but
need,
it's-
we're
but
gonna
he's
need
the
to
guy-
work with
but-
MDOT
I know,
for,
but I'm just saying, let Dave work with MDOT. He will be tasked to put the flags up, so.
he's tagged in the emails.
Okay.
So he sees
Okay.
everything that I see.
So he seemed pretty confident that that was gonna be a no-brainer. Their biggest issue is that you're doing marketing, that there's any sort of advertising, more about content than
Yeah,
anything.
but to spend that money and have to take them down, was it 28 days or something, whatever that
Yeah,
number
we
is,
went-
that's way too much
Yeah,
money to
I don't think
spend
that's
for.
applicable.
It's
but-
a waste.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
it's why we're hiring a company to deal with it, so David's not dealing with it, and we're not dealing with it. That's their deal,
Right.
so it's,
And we
it's
run
why we
into a
have
lot of-
professionals do it, because it's,
Yeah, we run into a lot of delays because we have attempted to do it without correct guidance, so
Sure.
we want to kind of
Right.
stop that and get moving, so.
I think we can all agree on that. We want to see this, start to progress. I mean, we bought this park so quickly. I thought that was going to be the trajectory of things. Like, this is going to be all right. We agree on something as a party and of a body of board members, and then we do what we said we were going to do. We got approval very easily, and it's like all of a sudden we're just, kind of not moving forward. And I'm sure, we meet every month. It'd be nice to see things go, but not only just for ourselves and our own time's sake, but also for the township in general
absolutely.
and the taxpayers, right? I just kind of mentioned that, I'm kind of having some issues with MDOT, so now that we are going to go into agreement with Carlisle, I'm gonna reach out to them and see if they have any strategy of how to get, past this quickly. Some other things that we discussed from our last meeting were the sign, we wanted them to update the sign, we kind of like the visibility of the sign, but we want it to look more, have more character, look a little bit more unique than, an entry sign to a Metro Park or something. So I did email them. They said that you're going to need a couple days to get some things put together, but they're working with us. I talked to DPW about the bracketing. Their price changed, so I'm going to have to dig a little bit deeper into why that is. But again, without approval from MDOT, the flags thing is kind of on hold. And then, our other subcommittee is the budget subcommittee. So we're going to take what we have today and we'll get together with Chuck. I'm not sure when he gets back, but he's on that subcommittee so that we can get together with budgeting that. But probably at this point, we might have to have the Carlisle group get involved in that, which they've done our last budget, they've done the CIA budget, they know what they're doing, they know how to do things quickly, they have a scope of what our funding is and what our plan is.
I just feel like it's counterproductive that we keep trying to do stuff that ourselves,
Yeah,
when it's not our job.
sure.
It's, it's something that professionals do for us.
Mhm.
For a couple $100, we could have we'd be done with it by, But there's, there are some stumbles with the loss of the assessing and our budget analyst. So I don't know if it's just the finance director, who's generating all these calculations.
Right.
Because we kind of lost a few of the key players, that were doing it. But while you guys are on the budget thing, if it doesn't get resolved by next month, I would suggest that we make it's got to be done by the end of August. So I don't, you're gonna have to lickety split it or hurry up and vote to get somebody professional to get it done.
Yeah, so we had agreed that we put it together and have the Carlisle group review it. So we'll get together in the next week or two, whenever Chuck's back, and we'll put that together.
David, can I ask
Yeah.
that this is the original estimated retention of funds for the
Okay.
DDA. We're not sure that those are on target at this point in time. I was wondering if, while you're doing the budget, if you could gather those figures for us to by year as to how much, so we can better project.
Yeah, I'm told that they should be higher because they have purchased, there's been a couple of sales up and down the corridor,
In
like
the
the
next,
car
in
wash.
the coming year, but even for 23 and 24 and 25, they don't appear to be what we're dealing with, so if.
Okay. Yeah, I'll get the exact numbers
Yeah,
of what
because these
we
are
have to
just
work with.
crystal
Yeah.
ball, I mean, nobody knew
Those are
what
estimates,
those
yeah.
were, yeah, so if we
Mhm.
had, an extra breakdown, that'd be helpful.
Yep, yeah, I'll definitely get that.
So, want me to give my update on the park?
Because
Design?
that's what I was gonna ask, is when are we gonna meet with Chris for the design?
So we had a meeting that was gonna be set up for August 1st, except for that I sent you guys an email about it. He's got all the changes that we talked about at the last meeting. He's revising those, and we have a meeting that was it's gonna be set up the last week of this month in person. It can either be on Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, anytime, and he's waiting for me to, after we meet tonight, to respond to him of what works for everybody. He originally told me Wednesday and Friday, so we had confirmed to do it Friday, and he's like, oh, I wrote it down wrong, those are the 2 days I'm not available. So we just got it flipped around, so,
Okay.
the last week,
Of
of the
July.
month, if you wanna be there, and, Kim and John and Gus, I don't know, we can't have a quorum, so we need to keep it, maybe that's why we only had it 3 last time. You gotta be careful about how many people come to this meeting, because we can't have it violate the open meetings.
Could we
Act.
do a special public meeting?
I'm out of town that week, if that throws anything into that number you're looking for.
Basically, what we wanna do is have an in-person meeting to make sure that most of the things that we discussed, and he's watched our video and our input, that align with what, our design standards are. And then, Then as soon as we give them the green light, then they'll turn it over to Nowak and Fraus, and then we'll start getting the engineering, and then it puts us one step closer to the RFP and
Right.
all of that, working in conjunction with Dave to get water down there, which he said would be no problem, so there's, but that's kind of where
What's
we're
the
at. So
quorum?
at the end of this meeting, if
Four.
you guys want,
We're Board of
Yeah,
Seven.
Board of 7 now.
so we can only have
So
3
four
of
is a
us.
quorum.
I'm happy to sit out. I've
You
seen
got all
it.
the good ideas, bro. Yeah.
I can only do it on the 29th, so if it's any other day but the 29th, I will be.
What day of the week is that? Is that
Tuesday.
the Tuesday?
Yes.
Okay. I'll coordinate with you guys. Sometimes if it's a day meeting, Gus can't make it because he can't work, so that could have solved the quorum problem. We'll see if we can't get 4 to go over that. So, and then so we're getting closer to that.
Yeah.
I had a question for you, though. I did get some comment. When are we gonna get the array of, John had some talking points about the flags.
About the flags? Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
when
was
we're gonna
told it
start
was
seeing
too
some
vague or
samples
something.
of,
Well, we had some samples of what we
These-
originally had, yeah.
these ones.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is there any other options, or did they give us, or
Well,
just?
there's probably
It's
not
a
any
blank
point in
slate.
talking about what the flags look like if we don't know if we can put them up yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
I
sounds
don't think
pretty,
it's ever come
pretty
up.
good, like we're gonna.
It's
get
a
it.
blank slate, so, now that, when we were trying to put this up, it was more like, let's get them up so the township sees them. But I think, since next year, we're celebrating 250 years, I think that definitely the Independence Day one has to have Happy Birthday, America 250, and that's gonna coincide with some other subcommittees, which are, or other boards, like the, Independence Fest Board, and then there's another board that I forgot, I think I said a 250 board. So, those we can coordinate together, and then, try to see what their type of,
So,
advertising is, or their logo looks like we can probably incorporate, so it looks seamless throughout the township, at least for that one.
all right, well, let's see what logo they come up with before we commit to that.
We're not gonna commit to anything, but it would be good to, see what they're
It'd be nice to
working
be
on,
universal,
so.
too.
Exactly.
So that when you drive through the community, it feels like one, not like, okay, Dixie Highway's their own and Sashbaw's their own, and then you got Walden, so you have
Right.
3 different things.
Yeah,
I-
and so those 4 that I brought were like quick, simple boilerplate ones. I asked them to tweak some things, like I said, Merry Christmas, or switch it to Happy Holidays. So they're very liquid on how they can work with us, whatever we want, they can print. If we wanted to create something entirely on our own, they would do that.
Yeah, I like that. But what do you think about this idea, if we do the 250 thing, if we just leave them up, those up,
Oh, yeah?
and then, or for a certain amount of time, and then we auction them off or something to raise money for charity or for the township, because once we're done with them, we're not going to probably put them back up again. Once the 250 thing's over and we go back to seasonal or something, I can't see us flying 250 flags for 10 years
Forever.
on the Dixie corridor, you know what I mean? So maybe we do them all to the 250.
They're gonna be
you
pretty
know.
weathered after a
That's
year.
what I think, that's my first
Well,
thought, is
it-
those things get.
I understand,
so-
but it's still it's a once in a lifetime piece of history
Could be a
of the
collector or
township, and it
something.
doesn't mean they're worth thousands of dollars, but instead of throwing them away or burning them,
Mhm.
it's just a thought to recoup our cost for them that we had them made or something, or sell them for $50 a piece and someone hangs them up in their garage or in their bar, that it was just a thought because that would be something we'd want to discuss if we were going to do the whole corridor in 250 for 250, and then they wouldn't be useful for us again. And then John had some good ideas about other options. Go ahead, John.
He's being sarcastic.
I am.
These are all Sam's ideas coming
No, no.
through John's mouth.
They're not.
It was my
They're
idea.
not. Listen, they're not. I tell you.
I have to do this. He shot me down pretty hard.
He's Sam's spokesperson.
It's not.
No, we've all been through other small towns who have done this, but
Yeah.
having a series of these made for military personnel who have some tie to the township, and having those put up,
It's my favorite.
yeah, and now I will tell you, I have participated in this in other towns that I've lived in,
Us too.
where we have, to Sam's idea, which was mine, is that you can actually, in most cases, the families of these service members would pay for it.
Mhm.
And you get to
With
keep
the
it at the
flag.
tail end. So we just did them up on Drummond Island, and so you purchase your flag and you put whatever information you want, and then you get it to
Yeah.
keep. And you can do it year after year,
Mhm.
but you can give as much information as you want or as little information, and then up there, they're big enough, you could put a person's head on it. But obviously, we're not gonna be there, probably, MDOT's probably not gonna allow that, but you could put the individual's name, the years they served, where they served, and it's pretty cool, actually.
Somebody had brought up during one of these meetings that you can either rent them or that they move them from, I can't remember who was.
From municipality to municipality.
Yeah, I could have sworn somebody
So,
brought that up, but.
we did have a discussion about John's killer idea, which was,
Nice shot.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
whether we would feel comfortable doing the whole corridor with that theme, or if there was enough light poles to get that, depending on the participation, to do the M15 section, would be like our veteran corridor part, or would it be, try to find 50 people?
I think you'd have to put it out and see what interest you get first,
Well,
do some,
Right, but we
whatever,
could
some
separate
survey.
it to a smaller area on M15 that kind of highlighted it there, and then roll out onto Dixie with different ones. So there was a couple options discussed on that, how to really make that.
Well, if we got a lot of participation, we just intermix it like with the.
Right,
with
could
the
be
fourth, and then just
randomly.
intermix
And then you
it
put the
all
250
way.
mix in too, but I think it's a pretty cool thing. People take a lot of pride in their family who's served, and I think it's pretty cool to do that.
Mhm.
Tells the story of our township and who people came from and who they are, and
Yeah.
people will spend a lot of money for that.
So I think we're in agreement that those are great ideas and we should keep them in our minds. for-
But realistically, it doesn't matter until MDOT approves or
Well,
we have a
yeah.
better
Hope we
understanding of
figure
what
out.
MDOT's gonna do.
We
I think
can't
we'll
do
get-
anything or decide anything about it
Right.
until MDOT.
I think we can get the MDOT deal resolved pretty quickly if we
They're
get
everywhere,
other
second.
players involved in it.
We just.
I think the
we-
only difference is when we all drive down those roads and we see them, a lot of those are not highways. Where Dixie Highway, you might be able to put them on M15 and it would be no problem, but putting them on Dixie
That's just
Highway, I
it.
think is the real problem. Like when I talked to the village, they don't even have approval to run theirs, but they're not a main highway.
Right.
And so I think that's probably the difference.
Yeah, and that's what they just kept repeating was, it's about safety, you're driving, is it a distraction, is it blocked driveways? you know. So we'll get to the bottom of it. But we haven't spent any money on it yet or anything like that. I'm glad we didn't just tell them to go ahead and print them.
Just your time.
No, but I
Just
don't
shoot- yeah,
think,
lots of time.
I think we should try to expedite the answer so we can get back on it again, would be good. And I think with Dave McKee and Carlisle and you all working together, we'll get the answer pretty quick.
And I thought that was the easiest thing to do.
That's what I thought.
You just,
Dave seems to think it's no big deal, so I gotta go with the veteran who's done it before, in
Where
his
has he
career.
hung them before though in our
Well,
township?
I don't know, but he's in charge of the light poles, so he's the most, he's the highest authority we have working with MDOT and the light poles. So if he feels confident he could get it through, I feel at least good about it, because it's his baby. He's the one who deals with that corridor every day.
We won't be
So-
just doing it, though.
Hmm?
We won't be just doing it, just,
Well, like I
hoping that
said,
MDOT
Yeah,
never
like I said,
shuts us down.
it's,
Yeah,
it's,
no, that's a
uh,
terrible idea, especially if for the next 15 years we have MDOT projects. We definitely don't want to be on the bad list to start.
yeah, they're already on our bad list, so.
Yeah, but, like, we don't want to be on theirs.
Yeah, I do think it's kind of thing. I do think once we meet the specs they have, we will have no problem. So, and Carlisle will know exactly what's needed.
I think they would probably know more than
I think
anyone
just
too,
the
because
initial-
we are not their first township
the
and not
initial
their only
order,
township.
the first time, and that's it. After that, we just gonna repeat it,
Right, sure. Yeah, everything, the dimensions. and
So we are in that hump.
We did get the DPW to go out and cut the grass and everything over there.
all the
Quick.
different-
So, look,
I emailed them
boom.
I can't remember when,
I
and
saw
like
them
that
there.
day,
Yeah,
they were there.
there
I was like,
mowing,
"Dang."
because it was getting a little
It's getting gnarly.
Who
shoddy.
looks bad?
Yeah. Look at that. Anything else that we need to discuss as far as subcommittees? Any other questions that came up during your meeting at one?
No, we had a pretty comprehensive list of, we couldn't think of anything else to do that we could come up with, you know, to do, to make improvements to the corridor that, you know, I think we covered, we got a pretty good list started.
Well, they're pretty general, and the extra things that we were thinking of kind of fit underneath the overall items that we had there, 6 or 7 of them, so,
Right.
sub-items, I guess.
I mean, if we can get some grants and we can work with, so it's, I think it's gonna be a really, we're gonna get a lot more done than we would get done if we didn't have the DPW already needing to do infrastructure repairs and have funding for it, and the same with the safety pass. So I mean, we're really lucky that we're gonna be able to use 3 forms of funding to get to the end goal.
Yeah.
Because adding sewer and water is exactly what we would typically pay for that if it wasn't in the plans of the DPW, for us to provide sewer and water to promote infrastructure investment, or you know, and redevelopment investment. So that'd be on our burden originally, but since it's a goal of other departments and they have other funding, I mean, that's a huge deal for us that, had they already had water down the road, we wouldn't be able to monopolize on not only their engineering, their work, their plans, their staff, their, you know, we get, I mean, I think it's gonna be, I think we're gonna get a lot of bang for our buck because we're aligning with, 2 other funded organizations that are all, have the same goals in mind. So I think that's gonna be a big deal.
Okay.
So I wanna dream big, was my
Yeah.
point. I wanna think big, because we're gonna be so efficient and get such good value that we can do bigger things if we think of any that we need.
Okay. So our call to action plans is, you know, we've got to get with Chris to iron out the design.
Yep.
Because that's holding us back from doing the engineering, and then the RFP, so we need to get on that. I don't know how often you guys meet your subcommittee, but you gave us a list of things. I don't know if you put a list of like priorities, like, do you want to do the sidewalks first?
We
you
can
wanna
do that without knowing what DPW's list and how they have to work.
Yeah,
Because
we
we want
kinda
to do it
need
in
more
conjunction
intel
with
with
them.
that.
Okay. I'm gonna find out in a couple days what the sign company has for us as far as design. So I can email that to everybody.
Yeah.
And, you know, we'll get with the Carlisle group, and, you know,
Yeah.
and then our finance committee is gonna have to put the budget together. So we'll get that together, and, well, if not next week, then the week after.
Yeah, I think if we do the sign and the park together, because they can't do the park without the sign and the
Sure.
engineering, you know, those are really the 2 hot buttons.
Right.
And would be,
Mhm.
we'll be get going then. We'll be actually up and running.
So, as part of a new request, I would like to request from Carlisle the map of the lines and where they're at, what has to be put in of the DDA. So they probably have an overall of that, and I would like
For
that.
water,
I have,
Maybe?
Dave
Or
would,
a path.
I think Dave would be our better resource.
for safety pack?
Dave
Well,
McKee.
Is that what?
I'm sure Carlisle Wortman has it, and they're working on them as far as diligence for where the infrastructure is, where it isn't.
Okay.
Where the sidewalks are, where they're not, so that we can then visually see the overlays in the areas we need to address. And if we can make a priority list with DPW, that would help guide us.
Yeah,
Just, I would ask either of them who's got it.
you probably both have it.
Well, because when I was at the
I would
DPW,
think Carlisle would have it.
when I was at the
DPW
DPW
updated.
and
That's what I
talking
think
to
these
Dave
are doing
about
now.
the sidewalk connections, he literally like hit a button and then it was like, a red line came up, here's the road right away. Then he hit a button and he's like, you know, here's the setback, you know, line to people's homes. So I think the software, it's an easy thing to do. The software exists. All of those things are color-coded lines that he was showing me on the plan, so, one of them, I know Dave does, and maybe Dick does, but yeah, that way we can see the missing pieces, and, all of that's gonna come to light now that we got people working on it, because we can just request it. And then they're gonna produce it in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that, you know?
Amen. Any other thoughts, ideas before we wrap this up? All right, we don't have any more public comments, so I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn.
Second it?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, great meeting.
Thanks, Jeff.